Hello. We are back with Imperfect Parenting.
It's good to be here.
It is just Ben and I.
I love sitting across the table from you, talking about this with these people.
Talking about this, meaning whatever's about to come out of our mouth. That's what we love talking
Prepare
about.
yourself.
So, are you ready? Here it comes.
We've been traveling a little bit, been busy, so who knows what's going to happen today?
I don't know.
What are we going to say?
I don't even know what that means. Somehow travel makes this crazier.
Tired.
Oh.
Tired makes this funny.
Oh. Is that okay? That's it.
That's what that meant.
Tired. Sure.
What did you hear me say?
I don't know.
All right. We do have a meme, as always.
As always.
As promised. This one just had me giggling. You have to go look at this one. We'll share it on our socials. There's probably I would guess a 3-year-old maybe, a little boy.
It looks like he was probably on the countertop, that corner space between the sink and the stove, usually where you shove your toaster and your blender. And on the counter, it looks like 2 bananas. It looks like probably were just out of reach or what he was trying to get, because it looks like that's where his hands were last seen in the placement of the bananas in this photo. But that's not really the star of the photo. It's just the details. I'm trying to give you a visual.
Exactly, yeah. So it's this corner of the countertop in the kitchen, and there's a drawer. You should say that for me.
Drawer.
A
drawer.
Aussies, help me out here.
He's like Southern Australian. Right?
Drawer. The thing you pull out in the kitchen. So his belt loop or something pocket has attached itself to the handle on this drawer, and it's pulled it out, and he's now upside down, dangling.
Yep. His feet are up in the air, his belly's exposed, and his head is on the floor. And it says, "Never mind why. Go get mom."
Go get mom. Help. I'm sure the siblings, they're just making fun of him, picking on him.
I honestly feel like I've seen this in real life. Like, I feel like this is something Levi did, which is very, very possible. Lincoln was on the counters, but the one in our family that did these things the most was Adeline. Adeline would climb up our pantry. Our pantry had like these accordion shelves, and she would climb up it as if she was rock climbing, because it was just these shelves straight out. And to get to the thing of goldfish crackers, because I would ration them out into a smaller thing. And when it was empty, she'd be like, "All for one for all, here I go." And she would climb up that. She would climb up on top of the countertop. She climbed on everything. Yep. She's our middle. She climbed on more things than I feel like Lincoln
did. This is something I'd probably do.
Yeah.
Maybe even as an adult.
Except for the drawers are not as high away from...
She's making fun of me in front of this whole crowd right now. Must be love.
You need to have really high countertops to be dangling like that. I think you can get yourself out of it, is my point.
Giant's house. It's true. I would.
But what was the phrase that Addie used to say when she didn't want us to like watch her or look at her? Do you remember what she used to say?
She had quite a little attitude.
She did have quite the little attitude. If it comes to us, we'll...
Was it no say?
Maybe. She did say no say. She'd shake her hand and go, "No say." Which
means
I'm going to tell her no.
No say.
No say anything. She didn't say worry about yourself, because that's that funny little video. But she said something like it. No say was one of them.
So if your kids are growing up, this is just a fun little activity. Go think about the silly moments they got themselves in. But this leads us into our topic we started last week with Seth, moving through the next few weeks, talking about raising young men, which we have the opportunity to do so. And we are around many young men just in our life and ministry and what we're doing here. So this is a fun one. It's exciting. Seth has 2 of these in his home. 2 young
boys,
men that he's raising. So it was a great conversation. If you missed that one, I would encourage you to go back and hear that one. But yeah, this is exciting. I think this is something I feel like I'm constantly learning as a dad, is how to do this well, especially as Lincoln keeps growing. The stages change, and the opportunity for me to learn new things for him just keeps changing, and us, really. Yeah,
I mean, he's 11 and a half, rounding it towards 12. So his stages of development are growing and changing, and he's definitely more and more becoming that. it doesn't feel like a little boy as much anymore. He feels like a young man. And so it does feel like we've reached this, and he's the youngest. So he's kind of got a couple things going in that he's got to figure out how to not get away with everything or get out of everything because he's the youngest. But then he's the only boy. So wanting him to step up and take more responsibilities because he is, he's stronger than Adeline.
Yep.
He's almost as tall as Adeline. Those are the only two in the house. So there's a shift happening, but his birth order kind of keeps him staying back where I think we're trying to progress him and move him into a new season of his life. But it's been, boys are just boys. It's just since the beginning, we were somewhere with the kids just this over Thanksgiving. And we were with my dad, and we went to this place in Redding called Turtle Bay, and there's this snow exhibit, and you could slowly rotate this little dial, and it would display how a snowflake is formed. Mm-hmm. And this little girl's before him, and she's just gently doing it. And then Addie steps up, and she just gently starts doing it. And then Lincoln's watching, just waiting. And as soon as he has space, he moves in, he just flicks the dial as hard as possible, and it just
0 to 60.
Yeah. and I just remember that was how so many things would happen. The girls would spin and dance and skip, and he would try and ram into them with his bikes or knock things over with his little tricycle. I'm like, this is what we do.
Yeah. Which it sounds kind of funny to even say out loud again because we say it often and it feels so obvious. But I think there's often this, at least in education occasionally, or different environments in society where we try and treat boys and girls the same. And we try and raise them in similar ways, but they are so different with such different needs, and they just function and process so differently. So
yeah.
I just think it's really important. But today, the thing we want to actually kind of tune into a little bit and zone in on is this idea of meekness. I think I picked this up somewhere a while ago, and I heard somebody describe it, and it's really the life of Jesus. We're kind of forming a new men's thing at Jesus Culture, our church, and as we've talked through this, banning our pastor, his description really that we've landed on is we want to raise people who are like Jesus, Christ-like. And that's really the goal, that men become more and more like Jesus. And I think one of the things about Jesus is he really was meek, meaning he knew how to live with power, but have control over it, not have the power control him. Because men, I think, typically they're taller, they're bigger, they're stronger, they can be louder, there's all these different things that gives them the opportunity to have power. But if they don't know how to handle it and wield it correctly, they're making more messes than they know what to do with. So I think teaching our boys and our young men how to be meek, meaning you have power, you have strength. There is something inside of you that's from God. But if you don't know how to actually walk with that and deal with responsibility and awareness, you're making messes.
It reminds me of a story when I think it was in 8th grade. If you haven't gathered, I am a bit spicy and bold and direct. And so it wasn't any different in 8th grade. I probably was even more so, even less aware or refined, and willing to poke at, the boys. I was very tomboyish when I was growing up. So, but I remember we were playing Capture the Flag, Ultimate Frisbee. That's what it was. It was Ultimate Frisbee. I did play Capture the Flag as well as a sport. I was on the team. Side note. But we were playing Ultimate Frisbee, and I was in front of the biggest boy in our school. He was younger, but he was a big boy. Like I think he was maybe in 6th grade and I was in 8th grade, but he's taller than me, huge. He could have been a linebacker. He was just, that boy was a big boy.
Early developer.
Yeah. And, I'm waving my hands all around trying to block him from throwing the Frisbee to his teammate. And with my hand raised, it made it slightly difficult for him to figure out how to throw it. Well, instead of doing a poor throw and throwing it over my hands, he decides to just throw it straight into my face, hoping that I would duck or I would cower or I don't know what. I don't know, but for me, it puts on the display of his lack of meekness in that moment because he has extreme power. I mean, he's not very far away because I'm however close you could be in ultimate frisbee. It's been a long time, so I don't remember. But he hit my 4 front teeth, and they all were loose. I had to go get braces on my 4 front teeth because they were going to fall out. That's how hard he hit me. And this was not like the first encounter I've had with this boy. Another story for another time, but basically the high note was I hocked a loogie in his face. So we'll have to get back to that another time.
Justice was served? No.
No.
I'm kidding.
Probably. But I mean, he was kind of this bully brute because he had a super sweet mom and dad and this little brother that he antagonized all the time. And he lived near us. So he was just kind of this big, tough guy. And I was older, so I would go toe to toe to him. But he never restrained his power. And I was always trying to figure out how to not get into a fight with him. But I remember that one time in particular, nearly bust the 4 of my front teeth out.
Dang it.
So my 8th grade graduation photos, I've got braces across the forefront of my teeth.
All I want for Christmas is
or in the yearbook, I should say, yeah.
Dang it.
But I that's what I think about as far as the awareness of your strength, your power as a young man, and then navigating the temptation to be aggressive.
To abuse it.
Because I want to win this game or I want to whatever it is. And that's exactly what happened to him in 6th grade and me in 8th grade is he wanted to beat me. And so the way he knew how to do it was throw the frisbee through my face. Yeah. I stopped it, but it didn't go well for me.
That's not fun.
I have all my teeth, see?
Good. Smile again. So just hearing you tell that story reminds me of this kid I went to school with through primary school and high school. His name's Heath. And he was this kid who, throughout my entire school career, he was the bully. Somehow I made friends with him.
You would.
I would, I guess.
I was fighting the bullies.
Yeah.
You were making friends with them. We had different approaches.
I guess it's probably a safety thing, but I was friends with this guy. But he was just these 2 kids one time are fighting over me to be in 2nd grade, to be friends, I guess I created problems. But I watched Heath throughout the entire time. In 8th grade, he hit this one kid because they made up a lie about what this other kid said to Heath about his mom or something. Mm-hmm. And he just wanted to fight. Yeah. But this memory of going to his house one day and his dad was there. And I watched how his dad treated him. Yeah. And I'd never seen a family act that way. And I bring this story up. I think about it as you're sharing because I think it's actually learned. I think meekness is taught and so is the opposite. Yeah. I think men... If you're listening, fathers, meekness is taught, and it's probably something you want your son to have. We have to put this on display. How am I speaking to my son and my daughters and my wife? What's my attitude like? What's my tone like? What do I do when I get upset or hurt or scared? What am I acting like? Because this puts on display what is okay, what's normal in a home.
If you're ready for a life-changing transformation, head on over to KyloUniversity.com now and start your journey towards a more fulfilling future. Don't miss this incredible opportunity. Your transformation begins at Kylo University. Visit KyloUniversity.com today. I think that's my question to you is how do you teach meekness? I agree that it is something that's taught and modeled. Because, I think about, different men that have boys, that love the gym and, different things. And they've have displayed this value for being strong. Let's think about Christian Zamora here at Loving on Purpose. Literally the guy eats, breathes, and thinks and sleeps around the gym. And his family's, first, and then the gym is the rest of it. Loving on Purpose is after that. There you go, Christian. We're third in your
Somebody send this to Christian.
But I mean, it's obvious that Christian goes to the gym. It's obvious that he prioritized that. It's obvious that he's a strong dude. I don't really know what he deadlifts. Maybe you do, or whatever, leg lifts.
Weights.
Or I don't know what you do in there. What's the press? Anyways. And he's got 3 boys. But there's never a moment where I think he would ever want his sons to use this thing that he's training and developing in his family culture as a weapon towards anyone else. I feel like how he talks about it is that he's going to the gym and he does all these things for the health and longevity of taking care of his family. So it's a benefit to them rather than this thing that he weaponizes.
Yeah.
And that's it on a million different levels. I think, how you talk to your sons, how you approach, and we had not very long ago a funny exchange with Lincoln where he's just completely ignoring me or disregarding me, and I can feel myself frustrated, and I could go into toe to toe with him and reaffirm that I am your mother and you best listen to me and take my slipper off if I really want to. But now, what does that fix? What does that do? When I know probably the best source of confronting him is actually through his father, because he has respect for you and the way that you treat me. And so that's the relationship that we're trying to teach him in modeling is this. And he adjusts. I mean, it's probably the newest battle at this stage in his life right now is him working out how to manage himself.
Yep.
And because when he was little, I mean, the toddler years, I feel like boy and girl toddlers are very similar as far as their behavior. Maybe boys are a little bit more aggressive, but I think Delaney was pretty intense. So I don't know that it's cut and dry there. I think it starts to change on the schoolyard and elementary age. It starts to go a little bit more. Boys are chasing the girls, but they're always the chasing, usually. And then you get to this stage and it's like they're trying to figure out how they put their manhood on display.
Yeah.
But they're that awkward chicken teenager, like, that doesn't look all right. What's happening? Because they're just trying to figure out how to do this. And so if they don't have a teacher, they become the bully. Yeah. And if they don't have someone that has a safe place to give feedback, then they never develop that piece.
Yeah. I think about this moment we had just last week, I think, or a few weeks ago, where I was talking to Addie and Lincoln. We were away, and I thought, hey, let's read today. Mm. So we actually left the house for a week. We're with our oldest Delaney, where she lives, and I told them both, hey, bring a book. Let's just practice some reading this week. Because we're not in school. Yeah. And there's an opportunity just to practice this. So I told them both, hey, how long would you like to read today? And Addie's like, I'm going to read this many pages or this long or something. And then Lincoln is now fighting me on what we'd already talked about. Hey, let's read some this week. Now he's like, I don't want to. He just is trying to get out of it. Yeah. It's all right, buddy. Do you want to read 5 pages or 6 pages? Let's start there. He's like, I don't want to. I said, okay. Well, you're welcome to do the thing you want to do over here as soon as that's done. Mm-hmm. And he left the room, and it sounded like he slammed the door. He left, and then slammed the door. He walked into the next room. It's like, what is happening? we don't walk around slamming doors around here. Yeah. And I went and found him and said, hey, what's going on, dude? It sounded like you just slammed that door. And he's like, I didn't mean to. I said, okay, well, I'm just checking because we don't do that around here. So I'm fine with mad. You're allowed to be upset. But when you're upset, starts to make messes, then that's a different problem. So I am totally fine with you being upset and frustrated and mad. Come, let's talk about it. If you're mad at me, I'm fine with that too. I can handle that. When you're mad, starts to make messes, that's going to be a problem for our family and for you. It's going to make problems you don't want to have to deal with. So that was a very simple conversation about reading. Mm-hmm. But it just, he just like you said, he's starting to work out. How do I rectify this thing happening inside of me? I think one of the definitions for me that fits in my heart that I think we see in the life of Jesus is meekness. For me really is it's my job to protect and defend that which I value with the power that I have. That's what the power is for. Is to defend, value, and protect, and not create messes and overtake. So that's the thing I want to be teaching. And it's these little moments like you don't want to read your book and you're getting mad about it. And the funny thing that happened is he's like, okay, I'm being silly. I'm upset about it. I'm going to read. He came back and was like, Dad, I read 10 pages. I'm like, I love you. I know. You got there.
I do think some of this happens because we'll get calls or questions about 5-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 15-year-olds that, maybe they're fighting each other or they're biting each other or they're getting in trouble at school or they have no relationship. I think this is the timeline is if you don't address this process starting back here where they're hitting and punching you when they're mad because you said fun or room, it only keeps getting bigger.
Yeah.
So you're missing the windows of confronting, hey, we don't act this way. We don't treat people like this. So you've got to confront it in the beginning. It's hard because people think, oh, they're little, they're small, they'll grow out of it. Well, they have to be taught to grow out of it. They have to be instructed. They have to be guided to, this is not the culture. There's a consequence for this behavior. There's an adjustment that's required for you to come to the dinner table before you because you just punched your mom in the stomach because you're mad at her for telling her you fun or room. This is the hard part is that people are really frustrated when their kids are, 15 and won't listen to them at all. Well, it started way back here. You just turned a blind eye because they were little. So if you're in that stage down here, this is the meekness discovery process that you are trying to nurture, help clarify, define, make adjustments because it just keeps growing with them and it just gets bigger and bigger if you don't adjust. I don't know that they become like they're still hitting you, but they have no respect for you.
Yeah.
That's how this ends at 15.
And what would you tell a parent who's just figuring this out with a 15-year-old?
It's the reconnecting. It's the place of you probably made some mistakes back here trying to control this behavior rather trying to adjust and teach and lead this behavior. So stop trying to control this behavior over here. Remember what you do control, permission, opportunity, and resources, and lead into that. You're still the parent. You're still leading. Clean up your mess, but start asking good questions. Stop trying to control everything. Yeah. Because that you'll just get more fight from there. Yeah. And then prioritize that this relationship is the most important thing to you. So
beautiful. One of the conversations we were having earlier was in John 18. There's this exchange with Jesus and Peter, and it's towards the very end of the story of Jesus, essentially in John and the Gospels, where he's about to go to the cross, and make the ultimate sacrifice for us. In this moment, and you probably heard this story, but I'll read this real quick, and we'll just kind of unpack it for a minute here because it just illustrates, I think, a great point of meekness. But Jesus answered, "I told you that I am He. If you are looking for me, then let these men go." And this is when the men have come with Judas to arrest Jesus. Mm-hmm. And, so I can only imagine the scene. It's like, his disciples are like, what is happening? Yeah. First of all, Judas has betrayed Jesus. Second, they're here to arrest him? What? You know who this man is? Mm-hmm. He has the words of life. So, let these men go. This happened so that the words he had spoken would be fulfilled. I have not lost one of those you gave me. Then Simon Peter, who had a sword, drew it and struck the high priest's servant, cutting off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. Let's go with that. Jesus commanded Peter, "Put your sword away. Shall I not drink the cup the Father has given me?" So there's just this moment that I think we're watching where it's like Peter didn't have that father teaching him
meekness.
And he
I don't want to share Jesus.
Yeah. Because I think at some level there's this idea that, men, you should have a sword. You should be ready. You have something to wield and power that's God-given. Mm-hmm. But knowing when to do it, knowing when to fight, and then when to actually have restraint is really important because your sons are watching. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, the other illustration of take up your swords and position yourself on the wall is in Nehemiah.
Yep.
And that was a very different assignment, which we were protecting and defending. And I want you to utilize that sword.
Yep.
Because this is not the moment of meekness. This is the moment of being a protector.
Yep.
But they all, I think, knowing when to apply it comes with that teaching and discipling that hopefully you're doing as a father in the home.
When that person walks in your house at the middle of the night and they shouldn't be in the house,
Sure.
It's not the moment for meekness.
No meekness.
It's the moment for, okay, let's put that aside for a minute and let's show up as the defender that you've been holding back till a moment like this, which happens to very few people. So I would say it's more about protecting those around me from me. That's what meekness is really about.
That's probably the biggest practice that you're putting on display as a father for your sons is, do you have the ability to be disciplined and self-control and live a life that has meekness at the helm, so to say.
And if you struggle here, men, this is for fathers, I would really encourage you, go clean your mess up. It might start with your wife. It might be with your daughters and your son. But go clean this mess up so we can restore the standard and then begin to disciple your son towards probably this vision that you already have for him. You just haven't seen the path yet or known how.
Yeah. Great. Well, we do have a question that we should get to because this specifically was sent in for the podcast. So if you have questions, please send them in. This one came through Anna, so they must have submitted it at the website, which is great. lovingonpurpose.com or DM me and say it's for the podcast for Imperfect Parenting. I love that too. But it doesn't say if they're boys or not, but in my head they are, probably because we're talking about boys.
They're all boys. Yeah.
How do you manage choices when you have 3 kids? Mine are 2, 3.5, and 5 years old. For example, getting ready for school in the morning, I might be able to spend 20 minutes giving one of them choices, but by the time they're then ready, the toddler has wet himself and the 3-year-old has taken off his coat and shoes and gone to play. How do you manage to empower multiple young children all at once? It's a good question because I think it feels a little bit overwhelming. I would set yourself up for success. Probably your priority would be to get the 5-year-old out the door because they have school. So, doing all the choices with them and knowing the biggest goal that you have is, honestly, I wouldn't care if the 2-year-old wet themselves, maybe keep the diaper on longer. I don't know. I probably wouldn't try putting the coat and shoes on maybe at all, unless you have to take all 3 of them out of the car to walk them in with the 5-year-old. I would just strategize as far as why does everyone have to be fully dressed. Maybe it's throwing all those things in the car, and when then it's time for school and the 5-year-old's getting out, I'd say the 3.5-year-old, do you want to put your shoes on first, or your coat on first? And doing it then, so I don't have to worry about it. But it's more about strategizing, because once the 5-year-old's gone, then we can realign and go back to the other 2. And then, 2 and 3.5, you probably can do a few things with them together. But set yourself up for success rather than set yourself up for being overwhelmed and failure. So prioritize what's probably the more urgent one. In my mind, that's the 5-year-old. Not everybody has to eat. Hey, breakfast is on the table. So we got to eat and we're going to brush our teeth or get dressed after breakfast. Okay, breakfast is for another 3 minutes. Okay. Those are fine. That's the reality of the boundaries that we have to keep moving. Sometimes I think parents are worried that we can't have a boundary as we give choices. There are still boundaries, and we give choices within those boundaries that help us move this along.
Yeah, I agree. I think setting ourselves up for success where, it does feel like we want peace in the house, and they're little minds and bodies that just want to keep moving and making messes, and it doesn't feel like peace. It's just them being them. It's where they're at. So I think you nailed it. There's not much more to say other than I think if the 5-year-old is the priority, let's put most of our resources and strength there, and then realign, because what's going to happen is the 5-year-old's like, I wasn't ready for school. I missed this thing, because we're just so disheveled.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to do some work before the next morning. So we did a lot of setting out the clothes beforehand. We did brush our teeth and then put toothpaste back on it and put it next to the sink. Like we were ready. Lunches were made. Backpacks were packed. Like I just couldn't handle all of the babies at once.
All the choices in the morning.
So we just had to do it was part of the bedtime routine that made us successful for the morning. And maybe the 3.5-year-old will want to jump in on picking out their clothes because their older siblings doing it. So I tell parents, try a few different things and figure out what works for you. Because if you're trying just like one method of choices, and it's not working, okay, adjust. What different types of choices do you need to add, or what do you need to take away to make your morning? The goal is to stay connected and have a great morning, and get everyone where they need to be.
And just to reiterate what I think you just said is there's a number of choices that you may even decide for the child before the morning. Mm-hmm. Meaning the clothes set out, the brushing your teeth, the breakfast is here at this time. There's all these things just to help them be successful. There's other moments where they can feel empowered and have different choices. The morning right now, we have to get your sibling to school.
Totally. So adjust and help yourself be successful.
Good. Great question.
All right.
Young men, let's go.
We'll see you next time on Imperfect Parenting.